The recording is on. That's great. Awesome. Yeah. So let me welcome Kolby here today at another office hours in the cohort 5. We have another special guest, Kolby. Yeah, it's an honor to have you here. You might know Kolby as a contributor to Portal Network, to Trin, and other related software testing. But Kolby started his journey in CDAP, which is the predecessor to EPF. It was the first two cohorts were called CDAP before we wanted to rebrand it. So Kolby is like the EPF OG here, and I think the first guest that we have from CDEP here. So, yeah, before we get to some, the AMA with maybe some technical questions from the audience, I wanted to ask you, Colby, about your background. If you can tell us about your story, about your journey. What did you do before Ethereum, and what was the journey through the CDEP for you, and so on. Yeah.
Sure, Mario. So, I guess it all started when I was a kid and aspirations. So, I really liked math and science class, and my first computer was like a CRT Mac Blueberry. So, it was insanely slow and garbage, but it was definitely inspirational in what I wanted to do. So, like triangulating those three things together, I knew I wanted to do computer science, but my computer was kind of shit. And I also wanted money because as a kid, it's kind of hard to get it unless you're like hustling your neighbors, which isn't always the funnest. So I would often Google online like how to make money online, and then I ended up finding about like internet money. Uh, I would join, I guess, crypto communities as a kid, and they would be like, "Whoa, that's super cool. You're like, what, like 10, 11, 14 years old? And you're like into the same thing as me? What the heck?" And they would be super, I guess, like open to having me there. And then over the years, I tried to program more and more, and eventually I was in this like one shitcoin community, and I was like, "Hey, I'll implement this thing for $600. It will help you in X, Y, and Z." It ended up taking me 60 hours to implement that, and I was so mad because I didn't think it would take me that much time. But then I basically just worked at a place for a while, left the place after I thought I improved enough, and I thought I couldn't really grow there anymore. And then eventually, the person I was contracting for, he was like, "Oh, this Ethereum thing opened up called CDAP," and originally I wasn't even gonna apply because I didn't really think I was gonna be accepted. But then I was in social class in grade 12, and one of my like really really good friends was like, "Oh, I'm gonna apply for a high school internship," and I was like super competitive, and I was like, "If you're gonna get like an internship, I have to apply too." Uh, I wrote like a one-page application to apply, and I got accepted. So that's kind of how I originally got into CDAP. I did it for the summer. I thought I did a horrible job, and then I was told like, "Hey, if you want, you can like work on more projects here." I was going into my first year of university, so I was like, "See ya," and then went off to party. 2 years later, I came back. I grinded over the summer. I got a grant, and then I was able to land a job uh, on EF Portal, which is the Ethereum Foundation's, I guess, portal team. So I guess that kind of leads me to where I am now. And yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I love the story. I remember, actually, I didn't realize that it was you at first, but I remember when in the protocol support a few years ago, Piper was telling us about CDAP. And yeah, there are some cool people. There is this kid who made his own Bitcoin implementation when he was 18 or something like this. And yeah, much later I connected that it was you. Yeah, it was really cool.
Uh,
Yeah, and so now, like, yeah, going forward, like, why don't you tell us more about your portal work? Like, what did you work on, and how it evolved? What do you work on right now?
so when I first started, like, I guess it's my second time contributing to Portal, like, I guess a year and a bit ago. I started just trying to pick up random issues to try to catch up with the project because at that point, the project had been like growing for like 2 years since I left. Uh, and I guess like the first thing that was on my mind is like, what is a priority for this project and how would I be able to identify one? One thing is for like core developers and stuff like that, you need to be very independently driven. Uh, so it was like I basically had to throw myself into high water and be like, hopefully I pick something right. And eventually intuition built up over time. Uh, and then my focus definitely for the first year was improving our like testing frameworks. So if you check Ethereum/Hive on GitHub, there's a end-to-end testing framework which is used by consensus and execution clients. But if you check, it's also used by portal clients. And one of my first things was we had like 10 basic tests, and I basic I really built out those tests. So for one, we could write new tests easier, but also just have more tests. And then another thing that ended up from that was okay, so I'm writing all these tests, and then it's like, oh, there's a lot of things that are broken. Uh, a lot of these could be like performance issues, such as like deadlocks, memory leaks, and fixing all those. You end up getting a fairly good idea of what's in the code base, just because it kind of forces you to read it all. So going from there, I fixed a lot of bugs and like a lot of performance issues for like 8 months. And after that, we have a data analytics platform for like the performance of our network. And after working on like fixing things for a while, things started to surprisingly work. Um, a lot of that was also going into like metrics as well. And most of that was focused on our first network called our history network. But then I moved on to working on our state network, where currently I'm building, I guess you could say it's an execution client without using the execution client peer-to-peer network. It only uses a consensus layer client. And the reason why we want that is because so portal networks, they store basically all the protocol data, but how do you get the data into a portal network? Well, you need to bridge it into the network. For state is like this massive problem because to do state in a provable format, at least today without Verkle, it's around like 20 terabytes of storage. So that's like a massive data set. And then if you want like replication, so like you're sure like it won't be like taken off the network, that's like you want to like 5 to 10x that. So that's like 200 terabytes on a decentralized peer-to-peer network. And then it's like you also like every single node in the tree is also like just a content type on the network. So you end up with like millions and millions of, I guess, like keys on the key space of our network, where uh, Portal is basically like a decentralized hash table. And what that means is like, so you have like your dictionary in Python where you can put a key and a value. Imagine if that was on multiple different computers and you could look like which computer had the key and log in time. That's basically the idea of Portal, but then it also integrates things such as having a robust proving mechanism. And one of the reasons you want this is because if you don't have a robust proving mechanism, like there's another network called IPFS, and the issue with IPFS is it's for one, it's not optimized for this case, but also you always need to republish the same data every day or some period of time because there's unlimited valid data potentially on the network. Older data is flushed off as newer data is added. Um, so, anyways, Mario, you can bring me in now.
Uh, Thanks, Kolby. Katya was asking about the intro, and I think you've already like explained a lot about the portal. But yeah, maybe like also going forward because maybe people might not realize how important portal might become with the 4 force and so on. So yeah, what is your vision for the portal? How you see the roadmap? How feasible it is? Like, people, people are hearing about it for like past 2 3 years. So yeah, when is it happening? And and what is the vision? Yeah, how is it going to look like?
For sure. So, the idea about Portal is it's like kind of like rewriting the foundation for how you participate in the Ethereum protocol and how you access the data. So, at least in the current model, without any upgrades, currently you need to store around a terabyte of data to participate. And a terabyte of storage is quite substantial. Uh, it re If you want as many people to participate, because it's a decentralized protocol, requiring a terabyte of storage is way too massive. Another issue that comes from this is currently clients sync from Genesis to latest. Well, there is an optimization to basically fetch the latest state so they don't have to rebuild all that. It still takes quite a long time. And ideally, if you wanted to use Ethereum in a decentralized manner, well, it's not really practical to be running this heavy client all the time and doing DevOps for yourself. Uh, so I think Portal will allow execution clients to decide what data they want in kind of like, because before they either stored all of it or you would rely on a centralized provider such as Envira. But the idea with Portal is you can, if you want fast access to the data, you can store it locally. But if you want access to all the data at all, you can use Portal. So I think one use case would be execution clients. And one of the use cases for 4.4s for execution clients was you could basically drop like a tenth of like 90% or 70% of all the data you store, because honestly, a lot of the older history isn't really needed anymore. And then you could rely on Portal so that you don't lose any JSON RPC functionality for older blocks. So kind of as in like a substitute for that. Another use case I see is because Portal will basically be like a decentralized JSON RPC provider. Instead of using something like a centralized provider for a mobile wallet, like currently Infura is used often, you can just run a Portal client on your wallet in the background, so the user doesn't even know a Portal client's running. It just acts as a JSON RPC provider, as if they were running their own execution client and giving you access, or if they were using Infura in the background. So I think that's really powerful because currently it's really hard to not use a centralized provider such as Infura because DevOps is hard. But with Portal, one of the hopes is that access to Ethereum in at least a majority of cases becomes a lot more decentralized. Uh, Maybe for every case, Portal won't be ideal, but I would assume most of them would work with Portal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kolby. And we already have some questions going in. How much storage each portrait client would need?
So that would be configurable. Defaults would likely be 1 GB because that is like very minimal. But users contribute how much storage they want to it. Uh, the incentive model around Portal is having access to all of Ethereum's protocol data through a JSON RPC in a very light manner provides a lot of value. So often, most apps you might install locally take up around 1 GB anyways, but that's totally configurable, like if you want to use less than that. So I think the incentive model is utility and what you can basically use Portal for, which is basically replacing many use cases you would need to run an execution client before.
Yeah, so like also like, but in general, looking at the network, like I would highlight that there will be, I think there will be this torrent dynamics where you have some seeders and leechers. You have some people using the light clients and just browsing the data and storing very little. And then I will connect client to my archive node where I will be seeding the network, and I don't care how much data it will need, right?
Yeah.
So I think like also this sort of altruism will be important there, like yeah, and with people using it. Folks, do we have any questions for Kolby? Like, feel free to raise your hands. By the way, we have people who are implementing their own portal network in Java, so I think there are more people interested. So yeah, the portal client, is it the same as lib peer-to-peer, and is it natively available with EL client implementation? Well, that's lib peer-to-peer is a consensus layer library. But the so Portal is using dev peer-to-peer with like different overlay networks, right? Do you want to dive into that?
So Portal, so the consensus layer and soon the execution layer use a protocol called the Discovery v5 protocol. Unlike I guess libp2p just v5, this is a protocol built on UDP, which often UDP isn't often attributed with having the best data transfer characteristics, but Portal is built on as a sub protocol of Discovery v5. To the question of will this be natively available in execution clients, and for some of the biggest execution clients, it will be. For example, Nethermind and Bezus, two I think it's the second and third biggest execution clients, are actively either planning to build a portal client or have even started working on it. For example, yesterday I've gotten a few messages from Nethermind's team in our Discord about like us using Hive, for example. So they're starting to build a client. In terms of Aragon, Aragon's likely to pick the torrent solution for 4.4s. Um, And then I believe Geth is going to follow some path the other clients use. I believe they're likely to follow like use Portal because like Portal's awesome. But it depends what use case they want. Torrenting can definitely be better for if you just want to like download all the data. But if you don't need all the data locally, but you still want that access, I think Portal's a great solution. So uh, in other words, we don't use libp2p. We're built off UDP off Discovery v5, which is how consensus nodes finds other nodes on the network as a sub protocol of that.
Yeah, thank you. Another question is about the incentivization for running a portal client, and we mentioned it briefly before about people using it or being altruistic. Yeah, you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So early on in the project, we were looking whether a monetary incentive model would be the right play. We decided against that because often decentralized monetary models often hurt the protocol. And what I mean by that is uh, often there's a lot of overhead in checking if there's actually like if you're actually providing the data or not. And that is um, that would make that would make the protocol a lot less usable, but as well it would kind of cause a race to the bottom. Uh, can you like if you provide all this data, you'll be paid X much, but you only need to reply within like 5 seconds. So if you could like have all this data and you only need to provide in X amount of time, how can you game the system? And I think by not doing a monetary system and more building towards like how can we build the most efficient client possible so that it's basically like you add this to your execution client or you have this in your app and you don't even know it's running in the first place. I think there's massive advantages there. And then if Ethereum is this global currency and we have the utility of basically like everybody who's actually using Ethereum, because Portal would have quote unquote instant sync times. I think the utility is much higher than the cost, which is most like your biggest cost will likely be storage speed, or not storage speed, storage capacity, like how much storage a Portal client uses. And as I said before, that's configurable. So maybe some people will be leeches But our belief is that like a gigabyte of storage is so small nowadays, nobody would even notice that. So in short, we don't have a monetary incentive model. Uh, Instead, we have like a use like a usability incentive model, in that we believe our protocol is useful, and if it's not useful, it shouldn't exist in the first place.
Yeah, like the incentivization model is that you want to access the history, right? Yeah, what happened in Ethereum 10 years
Or
ago?
like
I'm
any of it,
curious.
because we
Yeah.
plan to support the full JSON RPC.
Mm.
So yeah.
So yeah, another question coming in. In the long run, would the EL and the CL forward specific request to the portal network in order to reduce load?
So that's an interesting note. There's been talk of so in a post-Verkle world, when you have stateless execution clients and you are also using a stateless consensus client, how do you send a transaction to the network? And one of the early ideas of this is, well, you're going to need a new network what isn't dev P2P, because because uh, because a stateless execution client using Verkle could just get the block directly from the consensus layer. So the idea is, what if we had a transaction gossip network or a portal network, which was, I guess, a replacement network to dev P2P for sending around transactions. So I do think for like transaction relaying, Portal will be basically serve a very important use case for stateless clients. Uh, and then if we conserve that for stateless clients, we'll then do execution clients. Maybe they can just use that as well. And then with Verkle, maybe the execution layer doesn't even need its own peer-to-peer protocol at all, and it could just rely, because if it has EPF4 and EPF4 is like, well, you only store the last 1 year to 6 months worth of blocks, you can access the last month months worth of blocks from what's it called? The consensus layer. I'm gonna grab water quick. But with that, you can potentially kill the execution layer's peer-to-peer protocol.
Well, you
In that,
still need a gossip. You still need to gossip transactions, right? You need to build the mempool. So, although
yeah,
like you don't fetch the blocks, but you still need the peer to peer.
yeah, you still need peer-to-peer, but there's ways to do that without basically building like a Goliath of a client. And we're hoping building like, if if the execution layer is this big pyramid, we're hoping to make smaller pyramids what form the big pyramid altogether, but you can participate in the ones you want. So it's a reduced cost for what you actually want to participate in, but you can still participate in it all. Still lighter, but yeah, because you wouldn't need to store all the data.
Awesome. Katia, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just quickly looked through the docs and I've seen that there are different clients for Portal Network, right? Written in different languages. What are you working on specifically? And do these clients like compatible with, for example, consensus clients? Like, this, is it the same? Like, you can combine any client with consensus client, the same as execution clients.
Yeah, for sure. So currently, I work on Trin, the Rust portal client, which is built by EF Portal, a team at the Ethereum Foundation. I'm not sure if you were asking me to list all the clients, so I won't necessarily do that. But yeah, so in order to prove latest data, of course, you're going to need access to a consensus client. Whether this is a full consensus client or a consensus-like client to get historical summaries, which is basically just like a list of block headers, which are considered valid in the chain. So if Portal was to be used in an execution client, it would need basically access to this consensus layer data. If you're just going to be running a Portal node alone, we have something called the Portal Beacon Network, which is just like a consensus light client implementation we have done. But yeah, so a Portal will need access from the consensus layer the same way the execution layer needs it as well. And there's various ways to get that. And that is up to the developers, I guess, needs on which way they fetch that data from the consensus layer.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean it's great to see that Portal is also so diverse, like implementing Portal in various clients, so it benefits from the same diversity as the Ethereum mainnet. Yeah, people can work on it in different languages. But there's a question from Melton, like which client is more advanced in the implementation of each sub protocol? And it's a good question. Like, what is the current state? Like, which implementations are the furthest actually? Because yeah. When I want to try Portal, I'm also not sure which one is the most stable to use, and yeah.
So since our team is like, I guess the main team, we have the most resources. So I would say Trin the Rust client is the most far off client. Like, not to brag, we just have more resources and more people because
Yeah,
like
no
our
bias.
team is like the team. Well, our team's like the main team, and then it like for example, like Fluffy by Nimbus, funding comes from our team, right? So I would say our team is the strongest, but we also divide our responsibility. For example, one of our members is building our like statistics platform GLaDOS. Our team also focuses on writing tests, and I'm also building like an execution client basically right now without dev P2P to gossip like all the data with only a consensus client and a portal client and my basically an execution client with no peer-to-peer. So I would say like our client definitely has the most resources, which gives us an advantage, but we also build a lot of tooling for other clients because of that. So yeah.
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Kolby. Yeah, we have a hands up from Derek. You want to ask a question?
Yeah, for sure. So, I just had a question. Like in your work, how much do you specifically focus on, like the actual like usability of the clients, and like do you see Portal as being the primary way to bridge the gap between more experienced users and that of like just beginning users to, I guess, make Portal and just Ethereum in general more available to everyone?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the greatest barriers to Ethereum is knowledge to participate. And what I mean by that is so in Ethereum, we kind of have this decentralized ethos in that, like, okay, well, we kind of want to get away from centralized entities like banks because banks don't have our interests. So we trust this basically like this decentralized, trustless peer-to-peer cloud. And a lot of people access Ethereum through a centralized manner. And the reason they do this is because that has the lowest requirements of knowledge. Uh, a lot lower than if you wanted to run like your own execution client to access Ethereum yourself, which is a lot of work, and I think that's inaccessible. So I think Portal should be this thing that like applications such as wallets and higher level applications use, and the users never know about. Uh, One thing I would think Portal is a success if it's used by tons of people, but nobody knows what Portal is. Because the moment you need to know what Portal is, it's a requirement of knowledge, which is too high for like 99% of the population. People just want to be able to send money and be like, oh, it's done in the right way, in a secure way, and I can trust it. And I think with Portal for the first time, you're going to be able to have that. And I think it's very powerful. So yeah, embedding Portal, I think will be like a major use case, and just like developers hiding it away. but getting the benefits for their users, I think, will be massive.
Yeah, thanks, Kolby. I'm sure Derek wanted to respond. But yeah, like ideally, I want to have just a flag, I don't know, dash portal in any client and be able to serve or retrieve data. Yeah, there was a question from Melton. If you can get deeper on the bridge nodes, if you can maybe talk more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So a bridge node is a node what bridges data from either the consensus layer or execution layer into the portal network. So since all the nodes in the portal network are just nodes that store arbitrary data according to how close they are to its ID, they have no way of fetching it themselves. So what happens is you have like a source of data and you have a portal node, and then you have a bridge in the middle what takes this data and sends it into the network. One of the goals of a bridge is you shouldn't necessarily be able to identify it from any other node unless you did some like Eclipse attack to try to identify the bridge node, which Eclipse attacks are basically where like you try to smother a node. So it's like the only node that node talks to is you, and you have like multiple identities. But in the case of our state bridge, we want to, I guess, we just want to build an execution client because we need fine-grained access to the state to do it efficiently. And especially most clients like Geth, no, Geth archival actually does it, but newer clients like Reth don't store proofs for every single state in the chain. An archival Reth node only stores like the proofs for the latest block, and then it just stores all the accounts for all previous blocks. So in order to have access to all the proofs for all time, we're just writing a client to execute it ourselves. And we get some benefits like not relying on traditional execution clients directly, which one thing is when you have to like basically request like terabytes of data from an execution client, reliability between the JSON RPC starts to become a little bit of a concern. So in short, a bridge is just something that takes data from like an executioner consensus client, and it like offers it to portal nodes through a portal node.
Thank you, Kolby. We have some hands up. Boma, you have a question?
Yeah, I
You
have two
first. Yeah.
questions. Sorry, good afternoon, good evening rather. The first one is about network efficiency. Like, what are the potential improvements or challenges in network efficiency and latency introduced by Portal Network's approach to data sharing?
So I think one challenge we currently have is, so earlier I briefly mentioned that it's hard to send data reliably on UDP, which is what Disk V5 and Portal is built on Disk V5. So what we use is something called Micro Transport Protocol, or UDP. It's a protocol built by BitTorrent to get over some of the issues with using all the bandwidth on the network. We used it because it's basically you can build micro transport protocol as a replacement for TCP on UDP. One of the issues that we have it with it now is we're sending all these requests over talk requests, which talk request is a message typed by Discovery v5. And the issue with that is for every packet we send, it sends a response packet back. So if we're sending like 10,000 packets, in total, we're actually sending 20,000 packets. So one of the proposals to decrease that, I guess, performance inefficiency is by building micro transport protocol into the base Disk V5 spec. And currently that's in, I guess, various forms of talks with the main developer from Geth. I think his name is Felix. He also implemented Hive. So Felix on Geth, he implemented both Hive, an end-to-end testing framework, and also Discovery v5. The main Discovery framework in Ethereum.
Okay. The second one is on resource consumption. Like, how does the new mechanism affect like disk space requirements and maybe computational overhead for different types of nodes, especially in comparison to the current state of Ethereum nodes and traditional light client models?
So for light client models, currently there's only really consensus light clients. There's no really such thing as execution light clients. So to distinguish that, I think we're building something new, and the reason it's new is because it's really hard. In the case of storage requirements, where an execution client stores all the data, in Portal, all the data is divided up. One efficiency we could get on top of that is by compressing our data, because currently when we store data on Portal nodes, at least in our implementation, we don't compress it. So doing various compression techniques could reduce storage even further. But yeah.
Sorry. One last question. This is personal. As someone who is interested in distributed system security and engineering, how does like would this be like a good approach to my career? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
A good approach to what?
I'm so much interested in distributed systems and distributed system in general. So I'm looking for like the best how will I put it? When it comes of Ethereum, the best possible approach, like aspect of Ethereum that will help me to look further into distributed systems.
I guess I don't think you could go wrong by investigating any client. On the terms of like, I guess, network security, I don't think Portal is at least optimizing for that case yet. We're currently, as Mario said, when is Portal even gonna come out? So we're trying to get it out. The hope is that we have like the full history by like around the end of the year. And then we have like state coming up with by like January, so like latest day in January. And then by like maybe mid or later in the year, we have like full access to the state. So I think Portal currently doesn't have like every security vulnerability down. I think the consensus layer would be very interesting if you wanted to look into, I guess, distributed network security more, because that's one of their main focuses of that network. At least that's what I would look into. Hopefully I answered your question. Okay.
Thank you, Kolby. We still have hands up from Derek.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess my other question was like throughout, I guess, development personally, and then also just developing a client in general. Like, what are some of the like main roadblocks or challenges that you might come across? And like, what's one thing, like, if you like pick the most difficult thing, I suppose as well, would be an interesting question.
For sure. I think one of the most challenging things is compatibility with other clients. For one is UTP, microtransport protocol. Over the past, we have had problems perfectly getting like clients would interop properly in certain rare edge cases. I think that is, I think definitely one of the hardest parts about building a client would be like finding that you implemented a deadlock or memory leak. But I think if you have any takeaway from what I said, I think it is focus, because it's really easy to build out, and refine a ton of functionality. Write abstractions, what don't get you closer to, I guess, shipping your product or shipping your client. I think focusing in on what are the priorities and finding a balance of, I guess, maintainable code, but actually getting code out there is very valuable, because if you have users, you can always make your code better, but if you never ship your product, it's kind of worthless. And one of the problems that at least I noticed when coming back to Portal when I did was just like the lack of focus in the project, which sometimes it's hard. Like you're working on a project for 2 to 3 years. You're like, is this ever going to be like done? Like you have no idea why it's not working or not. Obviously, writing tests and working on like statistics really helps with like finding those bugs, but building a client over a long period of time, I think the focus should be like getting something that works out there and then refining it from there, because then you just avoid a lot of the cases of like, I've been working on this for 3 years. Maybe you could have been working on this for 2 years and had something shipped. And I think then if you have something out, it's a lot easier to see like if people actually want your product or not, or what benefits people want you to build out more. Getting information from like a user, I think, has a lot of value. But if your product hasn't really shipped yet, I don't think you can really get that. So I guess I'm just going back to focus.
Okay, I see. Thank you. I guess I had another more or less like not a speculative question, but I was curious about what if you think Portal will be ready for like demonstration, or at least proof of concept demonstration and the next hard fork.
I believe the next hard fork would be later into 2025, maybe mid 2025. Maybe it will be earlier, maybe it will be later, but it seems like it's extraordinarily big in terms of hard forks. So like we definitely want to have, I guess, full history by the end of the year, which that means our Portal Beacon network, which would also be deployed. For state, that's purely on my shoulders, because that's determined by how fast I'm able to execute blocks. Currently, I have executed past the merge, which is really nice. And I'm stuck a little later after that, which I should be fixing this weekend. But once I'm able to execute to latest, we should have latest state on the network. And then from there, we'll be backfilling. So once we have our 3 main networks up, we'll be able to support like 90, 99, or 95% of JSON RPC functionality. And then we'll go from there, adding networks such as a transaction index network and stuff like that. So.
Okay, sounds good. I guess I thought of one more question. Sorry. We in develop because me and Melson are developing our Portal client. Would you suggest that it's best to just take the history network, just fully flesh it out, and then just have that completely ready, or as opposed to have that mainly working, then kind of seep into like state and beacon chain and whatnot?
Yeah, I would fully focus on history, because for one, I believe that's like Bezos's initial use case. But also, I think it's the most mature. So if you guys can like send and receive data on history, I think that's super valuable, because like that's what everybody's talking about right now. So just being able to like the faster you can, I guess, send and receive those content types and have history up and running, I think that's like really powerful. And I think like, well, once that's done, well, you guys probably won't need to build an execution client yourself like I'm doing to like build a portal bridge for that data. So once you have history done, building state would be a lot easier, because most of the work of state is only adding new content types and validation patterns. So like once you have like the main framework, it's a lot easier to implement other networks.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And if we don't have any questions right now, there was one before from Elton, which is interesting. What are the main challenges your team is going through nowadays? So yeah, what challenges is Portal facing these days? And
nowadays it's a lot better than a few months ago, where it was like fixing tons and tons of bugs and being like, damn, this is depressing. I don't know why nothing's working. So now that things actually work, I would say the main roadblocks and challenges, are mainly just like building the infrastructure to support Portal. I mentioned it a lot, but me building an execution client to gossip all the state, I think that is our current like biggest roadblock, because after that is done, assuming we have like a fleet or like we build an efficient client, the more efficient and assuming we horizontally scale state bridges, the faster we'll have like all state done. And I think I think that's like the biggest roadblock or challenge, because when people think of Ethereum, people think of the state, this decentralized world computer. Uh, well, not the fastest computer. Uh, like you get the drift. So by Portal having state, you have like access to what makes Ethereum actually interesting at all. And I think like the challenge is getting there, because once you have a functioning state network, everything else is way easier, because it's like, okay, well, if the state is 1,000x the size of any network, history, you only need to, you sort of like 10x less data, and you also have like 100 to 1,000x less content types. So like, yeah, just like getting state deployed and done after that's like everything easy, because like state is just so massive. So I think state is our greatest roadblock, and I'm hoping to get it done. I want to be deployed, but yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said there, that the state is the biggest problem. Katya.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess you must follow Ethereum hard forks. Do you have your own hard forks or not, just updates?
Yeah, so currently Portal is very early on, so we don't, since we have like nobody using us, we're very flexible in that we don't need our hard forks. A few months ago when I was in Prague, I was talking to the author of EPF1, and the reason why he made EPF1 was because he was so annoyed with Geth and Parity, which used to make Open Ethereum, and I forget what else they're called, which were the two big execution clients at the time, which before proof of stake execution clients were the only clients. And then there was also Ethereum JS. So I forget his name, but the author of EPF1 was also like the team lead of Ethereum JS. And he was so annoyed because he would implement this improvement Geth did, and then he would realize that like Open Ethereum did it. So I think a lot of that formalization came from like this place where like random things were happening all the time. Currently, since Portal has no users, and as Mario keeps complaining, when are you guys going to launch? Since we haven't launched it, we're very flexible. But once we get like more stable and we actually have users, I would see like an E process or an improvement proposal process to, I guess, be ingrained in Portal as well. But in terms of like normal EEPs, we do need to support ones what are related to the execution and consensus client in terms of consensus types and execution layer types, because we support that data. So in the next hard fork, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So your team builds both the protocol itself and the client?
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the teams can propose changes to the client. Or I meant to the protocol, but yeah, we're building. We're kind of like research and implementing, like an R&D team. Where something like Geth is, well, they do R&D too. There's actually just like EF research, what does a lot of R&D, instead of like just only Geth doing it or something. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Kolby. Yeah, I don't keep complaining. I'm just like, I remember 2 years ago running Portal client and it worked. So I wonder, like, what's been happening since then. So.
No. Don't worry. I'm complaining too. I complain all the time.
Good,
I'm like,
good.
Come on, guys, we need to focus.
Nice. Boma has another question.
Okay, it's about challenges of cross-chain interoperability and data consistency with Ethereum when Ethereum interacts with other blockchain network? Are there any specific strategies or protocol within Portal network designed to facilitate this interoperability?
So currently the focus of Portal is only on layer 1 Ethereum. And the reason for this is to build a decentralized model such as this, you need, I guess, a critical mass of users to support the network. If you want to basically like store all the history in a distributed manner, well, then you need replications, but you also need to have more decentralized storage capacity than the network requires. So if Geth requires like 20 terabytes to do an archival node, which stores all the proofs of the state and stores all the blocks, Portal would probably need 100 terabytes of distributed storage. So since this is a massive problem, our project is only focused on L1 Ethereum. And the reason for that is just that's where the users are. So in order to like have this sustainable model, that would be the goal. Portal is very extendable. So if like third-party chains wanted to build off like Portal, they could add their own Portal protocols. We're a very extendable format, but our focus at the Ethereum Foundation is Ethereum.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, last 5 minutes. Do you have any last questions from you guys? Something to wrap it up. Okay, Portal on layer 2 is an interesting question. Yeah. Any thoughts about that?
Currently, we have no focuses on doing L2, shipping L1, and then maybe after a year or two, seeing how L2s expand. One big question is the access patterns for L2s. What data are people actually interested in? And if earlier I talked about incentive models, and basically it's like this balancing act of resource requirements, but also utility. Is Portal in the context of an L2, does it have enough utility to justify storing all that data? That's an open question. And yeah.
Yeah, I find it interesting because, like, to answer your question, like, the blobs are ephemeral. So now the clients need to hold their own history. So have an alternative access to a layer 2 history would be interesting as well. But I think it's not up to you guys. I think it's something that the layer 2 teams should recognize and contribute to your efforts and fork it and so on.
Yeah, if they wanted it, they could build a Portal L2 network or something. And yeah, or a Portal blob network, 100%.
Okay, awesome. Okay, before we wrap it up, last few minutes, I want to ask you whether you have some general advice for the fellows. Like, you've been through this experience, so maybe something that you wish you knew a few years ago, or just some advice for the fellows going forward, working on the core protocol, and
For sure. I mean, advice I think is very important is always follow what you're passionate about. Stuff like money always goes, but I guess enjoying your work can be a lot more important. Another note to that is knowing your worth and whether, like, I don't know where you guys are going to work, but whatever job you end up in, knowing when it's your time to, like, if you should stay on that project or not. Never feel trapped in a project. And I think working hard in terms of if you get ahead of other people in terms of like maybe ability or work ethic, I think that goes a really long way in that, like, if you're very new to something, it can seem very, very hard and daunting. But if you like work really hard to like catch up and maybe exceed the people around you, I think it creates a very flexible environment where you can explore your interests and also not feel like trapped into like one area of research, which I think is very fascinating. I know various like for example, core developers who have even jumped teams. Like I believe, I forget his name, but the guy who wears the lion hat, like he used to be on Lodestar, but now he's on Lighthouse.
Lion, the Lion, yeah.
Yeah, Dabline. So I think having like the flexibility to like be like open to where you work in the space, I think is very important for like self-fulfillment and longevity. And I think longevity and enjoyment in your work and knowing your worth and not feeling trapped, I think that's one of the most valuable things that a person can be aware of, because life is only so short and you should be able to enjoy it with freedom. And if you guys know anything about Mario, this guy loves freedom. And man loves freedom. What can I say? So,
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Kolby. No, it was really nice, nice way to end, wrap this up to end this. And yeah, I do love freedom, and that's why I work on Ethereum. And I really like how you bridge that. Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much, Kolby. It was amazing. The whole thing. It's been an hour. It went pretty fast. But we are already full hours, so we gotta wrap it up here. And yeah, again, it was amazing. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
yep. Thank you for having me.
I believe, yeah, thank you so much. I believe people learned a lot and get inspired. So yeah, very well. Awesome. Kolby is available on Discord. People can ping you, I hope, if maybe they have
Yep,
some more
100%.
questions or anything. So yeah, we're in touch. And I hope to see you in DEF CON. We'll have the cohort there so people can actually meet you in person.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks everyone.